It has been another week in America, which means it's been another week of black people being harassed or killed by the police. And by now, everybody's aware of what happened to Daunte Wright and Lieutenant Nazario. And although each incident ended very differently, they both began the same way. It's the same way that many of these encounters begin, with a traffic stop. And for black people in America, these traffic stops are scarier than any Jordan Peele movie.
Driving while black. In many U.S. cities, police officers are pulling black drivers over at a much higher rate than white drivers.
Black drivers are far more likely than white ones to have guns pointed at them by police, to be detained, handcuffed, searched, and arrested.
Those blue and red cherries come on behind you, you all of a sudden get a tingle, your heart starts to race, even when you know you've done nothing.
There is not a moment that goes by when police are riding behind me where I don't fear being pulled over.
The fear of driving while black is always present, even in life's happier moments. Like when Rona Vega's 18-year-old son Teji won a car on The Price is Right.
It was so surreal, so much joy and excitement, and then reality set in. My 18-year-old black Latino son does not need a car, and what's going to be the problems that he's going to encounter.
God damn. Think about how messed up it is that the only way a black person would be happy about winning a car on The Price is Right is if it came with a white person to drive it for them. I mean, no one should be afraid that they'll be killed because of something they won on The Price is Right. Other than maybe one of those pontoon boats. Those things are death traps. I'm pretty sure you're only allowed to drive them if you're drunk. But this just shows you how getting behind the wheel is a very different experience for black people in America. It's why Vin Diesel is always the main character in Fast and the Furious movies. You can't have Tyrese pulled over for a busted taillight when you're trying to drive out of a skyscraper. And you might be thinking, well, if you're so scared of being pulled over, then don't do anything wrong. Yeah, but let's be honest, people. America's laws always give the police an excuse to pull someone over. Oh, I think you were going too fast. I think you were going too slow. Oh, your seatbelt, your tail light, your license plate, your registration not signaling, tinted windows. And nothing is more suspicious than someone breaking zero rules in their car. Ooh, cops will pull you over instantly. Sure, I couldn't help noticing that you were driving perfectly, and that was a little suspicious, to be honest. Why don't you go ahead and pop the trunk? But it's not just traffic stops. Every encounter between a police officer and a black person is fraught with danger. In fact, there's something in black families called the talk. And I don't know if my white viewers know about this. I mean, maybe it's one of those things that black people do that you've never heard of before. You know, like laying edges or putting plastic bags on your Jordans when it rains. But believe me, every black family knows what the talk is.
We call it the talk, a discussion black parents have had with their children for generations.
A conversation that you and I have to have that it is tantamount to their survival.
Alerting children about interactions with police where body language, tone of voice, word choice, and other factors in certain circumstances can lead to arrest or worse.
At some point, you will get pulled over, and here is how you act.
Put your hands on the steering wheel. Make sure the lights are on.
Don't do anything without police permission. Ask before you get your registration. You don't question and challenge the police officers like everybody else can.
You guys just have to be a little wiser in terms of how you communicate and not agitate the situation any more than it is.
Submit, obey, come home. The talk will always happen in black households. You have the talk about the birds and the bees, and then you have the talk about how to deal with law enforcement.
That's right. Police violence is such a threat that somehow the most uncomfortable talk you have to have with your kids is the one where you don't use the word semen. And look, I know that all parents talk to their kids about how to stay safe, but for black people, it's specifically about staying safe from the police, the people whose job is supposedly to keep them safe. The police talk simply isn't something that occurs in white households. I mean, if it did, it would be a very different conversation. Okay, now, honey, if you ever get pulled over by a police officer, what do? You look him in the eye and you say, "Do you know who I am?" And then he'll apologize and he'll let you be on your way. And by the way, it's not like kids hear the talk when they're 18. The saddest part about this talk is that because police have a history of treating even 8-year-olds like adults who have committed heinous crimes, parents have to give the talk to their kids when they are extremely young.
As a mom, I've always taught my children to, be strong, say what you want to say, there's freedom of speech, and I'm telling you to do just the opposite.
I hated to have that with a 10-year-old, but I gotta do what was necessary.
8 years old, you didn't think that was kind of young for it?
Oh, I absolutely think it's young, but not too early.
We've talked about it ever since he became about 4.5 feet tall. So it's been years now.
If you wait until somebody is 12, 13, and 14 to put that on them, it can be really difficult.
It's definitely wrong that we have to go through this, but also we have to remember we have to take it in stride if we want to get to where we want to be in life.
If I don't listen and understand, I could potentially be one of those in a video.
We actually have a line that we do at our house. We practice this thing. What is it?
I'm Ariel Sky Williams. I'm 8 years old. I'm unarmed and I have nothing that will hurt you.
An 8-year-old girl, people. What's even more wild than an 8-year-old having to memorize a script to interact with the police is the fact that a fully grown armed and armored police officer would feel threatened by an 8-year-old girl. I can tell you, I haven't felt threatened by an 8-year-old since I was 15. I was a very small child. When you think about it, Black people have more education around policing than actual police. No cop starts training at 8 years old. I mean, maybe kids play cops and robbers, but that's actually terrible training. Because I've never seen a cops and robbers game that ends in a peaceful arrest. Yeah, they're just raining pew pew pews all around the neighborhood. So, we know that Black people know what's at stake and have methods of how to handle being pulled over by the police. But the talk still hasn't been able to prevent police violence against Black people. So, maybe it's not Black people who need a talk about how to act around the police. Maybe, just maybe, police need a talk about how to act around Black people.